don't put a wall up. If you say it ain't going to work, well, it will work better.
Well, let's say logic. Let's say cigarettes are no good because they cause cancer and you'll choke and you'll feel ill and everything else. And Nita, what are you going to say?
But that's kind of where I was going, was the fact that you can tell your subconscious you can have it, but it's not good. In other words, you're giving it permission.
Yeah.
You're giving it permission to do whatever your conscious wants to do, but with a rationale as why you shouldn't accept that permission. You're giving it permission to do what your conscious doesn't want it to do.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're offsetting it with a rationale.
Okay. Why is it, though, that it's difficult to accomplish a goal, such as losing weight or quitting smoking, logically?
Because the subconscious doesn't react to that, doesn't respond to that, it has no logic. It just
That's
says, I
very,
feel it.
yeah, what is your first name?
Joan.
Joan. Okay, that's very valid, Joan. It doesn't react to logic. What is your name?
Margot,
Margot. Tell me, Margot.
I was going to say that by using logic, you're focusing on losing weight, and you don't want to focus on.
Yeah. All of you are giving me excellent answers.
Is it because you might be giving excuses, like if I begin to diet, I may not get enough vitamins, and you're trying to convince yourself that it might not be the best thing for you?
Yeah, that also is very accepting and valid. What is your first name?
Ann.
Ann. Okay, Ann. And I guess what I'm looking for is this, is that the habit itself is not very rational. It's not rational to eat excessively. It's not rational to smoke a cigarette or bite your nails. There's no, Bob?
Isn't it mostly like from smoking? Smoking is actually as a result of habits you acquired over the course of the years.
Right.
And what you're trying to do is trying to break and change your habits.
Right.
If you always had your cigarettes in your left-hand pocket, you try to take them and put them to a different area.
Yeah.
Or put them into your pants pocket.
Does that work?
Yes, it does.
Uh-huh.
I quit.
Okay, and you did quit on that form,
Right.
but do you know many people have a difficult time in quitting with logical, rational things like hiding the cigarettes or
It's not hiding. It's actually a changing of a habit.
Uh-huh. And when you change it, you become more aware of it.
Yes, you are.
Okay. What I was attempting to bring out more than anything was the fact that hypnosis seems to work well on accomplishing these goals because there's nothing very rational about the habit, smoking or nail biting or eating or whatever it might be. And hypnosis itself is the most irrational form of communication I've ever found. You could just listen to my jargon. Nancy smiles on that, but it's very valid, isn't it? You can listen to my jargon when I do an induction, and I might say something like, concentrate on the sound of my voice as your thoughts begin to drift. How could that happen? How could you concentrate on the sound of my voice and have your thoughts drifting? You can't. It's not rational. Unless you're in an irrational state of mind. Then you can, because it happens, doesn't it? When I'm doing an induction, and I don't know if you recall the first week, and this evening you'll see it, I'll say, and you're feeling so relaxed, and you're feeling so comfortable. Now as you begin to concentrate on my words, you begin to concentrate on what I'm saying, notice your thoughts beginning to drift. Does it not happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, explain, why does it happen? Because we're separating the rational from the irrational, or the logic from the illogical part. We're separating the conscious from the subconscious. You see, the conscious is here, and you know what it's like? Well, I saw your hand over. It's like, see the magician. He or she says, "Watch my hand," and they're showing you this trick while he or she is doing something here. You see, so the misdirection of the vision in magic is equated with the misdirection of the mind in hypnosis. As long as I could misdirect your mind,
Conscious mind or
conscious, that's the logic. The logic is, look at this. All of you logically look at this. What you missed is what I'm doing here. See? And as I say, listen to this, and you're listening. But if I could make, in some way, a certain sensation in your mind, a certain feeling, I could create a floating or a drifting or a non-descriptive feeling in the conscious mind, while the subconscious mind almost like magnetized to what I'm saying. Do you notice this class? I know you haven't had enough experience.
Is that why, like, when you talk, we'll be doing, well, hypnosis, like, say, on your tape, you have the hypnosis, and then all of a sudden that music comes in.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to hear the music and trying to listen to you, too. And that's, I think, how your mind really drifts.
I agree. I obviously I listen to a lot of people who are in hypnosis. I hear their tapes, I hear their lectures, I look at their ads and everything I possibly can. I even have the people that work for me call up other hypnotists and ask them questions for the purpose of finding out, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong, what are they doing wrong, what are they doing? You know what I keep finding out though? Is that one thing that seems to work consistently well is a distraction to the conscious mind. Yeah.
And I think the music does it.
Yep.
When I listen to his tape, he has a sleep tape, and I also have his diet tape. When I listen to his sleep tape, I have no problem, because he talks, and all of a sudden it's music, and your mind does drift.
Sure does.
I have something interesting to add to that. I did it too. And I was that music just, was so fantastic. And yet it's hard to say that because it was so distant. I stopped tonight and I met the man.
That's okay. In a week you won't even know what it's like to talk.
I know, I swallowed I swallowed one. I met the man that did those tapes for you. The music, because I was raving about...
Which one? Which man?
At wherever the hell I was there.
Oh.
Audio,
Yeah. Yeah, United Audio.
yeah, United.
And he was quite pleased because that was one thing I mentioned. Of course, I'm raving to anybody who will listen. Look at me, I've stopped smoking for 48 hours, but you know. And so he was standing there grinning. I said, okay, I don't care if you don't believe me or not. I said, regardless of what it is, if it works, that's all I ask. And he said, no, I'm smiling because he had
Yeah, made the music for you?
made the music.
Was it Pat Brennan?
I didn't even ask
Kind of a
him.
thin, nice looking
Nice looking young boy.
Yeah.
It's a shame I'm not 40 years younger.
What a coincidence, huh? Yeah, I had about 3 different musicians make music for me, and also we speak about the sound effects and things such as that, but I don't need to get into that too much right now. Mainly what I would get into is why. You know, why
But I
does this
think,
happen?
okay, that was a very good point. I think that is grand to separate.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
You know, I may also add class how I came across this. Long before I was involved in the type of hypnosis I'm involved in presently, meaning the more electronic, sophisticated type, I was involved in hypnosis where you sat there and I sat here and I'd speak to you. And we were speaking about this last night, and it's quite humorous because you can begin to visualize what happens to a person who does hypnosis all day long. They get quite hypnotized themselves. You know, it's a very, imagine what an induction is like. I slow myself down and I speak slowly and I put myself to sleep. And I could recall so vividly, and I'd go like this and my eyes would close. I'd think, wow, how long did I close my eyes? Well, obviously I couldn't tell my clients. And I remember I used to, in my other office, I used to have a little digital clock and my eyes would close. And I'd jump up and I'd look and see, was that 2:41 last or 2:31? You know, was I sitting there with my eyes closed? Well, whatever it was irrelevant because I never got caught. That was the best part.
I caught you.
No, you didn't.
I was in that chair for an hour and I thought you got to lunch.
I never got caught, but the most exciting thing of all that I could always remember would be that people would open their eyes and they'd say, wow, that was so great. And when you stopped speaking, my mind just trailed off somewhere and I don't know where. So I consistently began to hear this. And their mind was trailing off because I was dozing, but I didn't want to tell them this.
They don't want to wake up.
And it's purely by accident I began to determine that sometime when you're not speaking is when you accomplish a lot with the subconscious and the conscious mind. Now obviously we need instructions. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more assertive. You're going to see yourself in a different way, or you're going to be able to view yourself accomplishing much more. And all of these little things that we begin to speak of. But how do we have these suggestions or instructions reach the subconscious mind? By taking a conscious mind away and distracting it. By having it look at something else when you're trying to give it instructions. The magician would not be very successful in materializing something if you were able to observe what he or she is really doing. And in the same respect, remember what we said in first class. In this class, this is a self-hypnosis class. You're the hypnotist. You're going to hypnotize yourself. Now you know what you need to do? You need to be able to trick your subconscious mind and communicate well with it and fool your conscious mind and distract it well. And it sounds very confusing, doesn't it? No, we do it every day. We do it every single day when we want to, don't we? Good example? We're not hungry and we eat. That's a good trick, isn't it? How'd you create that trick in your mind? Yeah. You see, so all of a sudden you reverse the process now to, I expressed it last Wednesday, eat only when you're hungry and never till you're full. You like that one? Okay, anyway, that idea of eating only when you're hungry and never till you're full sounds real nice consciously, but if you could begin to program it in your mind, you can begin to see validity on it. But again, I guess what I'm attempting to say is you trick it. You know this class, like, let's say, for example, eating. in many, many of you, and I can't be exact with all of you, there seems to be a need, a discomfort forming in the stomach sometime. And the mind just says, gee, I feel a little bit hungry. And we eat because we think we're hungry and we're really not. A lot of you might not even be aware of this. It requires a lot of awareness on your own body and your own mind to realize, why did you just pick up that cigarette? What happened just prior to picking up that cigarette? Now the habit part is important. Bob says, break the habit, change the pockets and whatever else. But let's say that I'm speaking to you. And I start speaking about one of our classes is going to be on regressions and going back into our childhood and determining why certain things may have started in our childhood and how we're going to deal with them in the best way possible. So let's speak about that for a second, just to give you an example. I start speaking about maybe when you were 5 years old, something occurred. And all of a sudden you have an urge for a cigarette. And you pick it up and you're like, because what went in your mind when I said it? Because it created an imagery, didn't it?
Well, the only reason I smiled was because when I was 5 years old, I was put in an orphanage.
Yeah.
And I realized that a lot of my reactions,
Observe, if you will, while she's speaking. Go ahead. A lot of your reactions.
to what happens to me now go back to when I was 5 years old and the feeling of abandonment.
Yeah. And as Dee began to speak, she swallowed. It was difficult for her to begin to speak. There was a certain level of emotional regression beginning to form. And it's no way to make a spectacle of Dee and put her on display here. But I wish all of you to become aware of these little things. Do you smoke cigarettes?
Now and then.
Now and then. Did you almost have an urge for one as we began to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? But would you have been aware of the fact that you were having an urge because I was speaking at 5 years old and just somehow hit it? In other words, I stood up here in front of 25 or 30 of you and said, and when you were 5 years old, and as I'm speaking, I spot Dee over here doing something with her face. Discoloration in her cheeks. Margot, is she redder than normal, you think? Yeah. And, why is it all of a sudden this occurred? I don't know. It probably triggered something in her subconscious mind because her memory went back and she forgot that she was a rational adult that's sitting there. When she forgot, that little dip in the emotional level occurred and the urge for a cigarette began to occur. Is that a good demonstration class? For nail biting, for eating, for smoking? If you could create an awareness to that, could you begin to see how you could control your habit? First on a conscious level of an awareness, and then on a subconscious level of education or re-education. Remember, one thing is, this class isn't really a self-hypnosis class. This is a dehypnotizing class. We are going to teach you how to dehypnotize yourself. Because you've already been hypnotized into believing all the stuff and feelings that you might have. Dee?
What I want to say too is when I get the urge to have a cigarette, I make a conscious decision if I really want it or I don't want it. And I sometimes give myself permission to have a cigarette.
Yeah, and then do you need it as much as you give yourself?
No.
Isn't this crazy? We just spoke of that. Nita just brought up the same thing. You give yourself permission and you don't need it. But if I say to you, don't think of an elephant, you do. And if I say, you can't smoke that cigarette, your head says, you want to bet? Yeah, first week we did it. I realize that you've been able to observe two different individuals, but if you realize, the first week I said, all of you smokers, how about if you sit here and smoke? I haven't even noticed any ashtrays coming out yet this evening. How come?
Oh, because that table jumped all over us last week.
It says no smoking, we couldn't breathe in here after this.
Okay. Excuse me for bringing up something I wasn't aware of.
Give Diana credit.
Do you know what I was going to say?
Did you give Diana credit?
Give Diana credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were we going to say?
Just like if my husband, if I take a cookie at home, if I'm going to take a cookie, my husband says, you're not going to eat that cookie.
You want it.
I take 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, sure I am, now I'm going to have 4.
The reverse seems to
Yeah.
occur.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Okay, I guess what we're attempting to bring up though is the need to give ourselves permission to fail. So when Dee says, okay, I've thought it out and I can have that cigarette. Whew, did the urge go away fast? It's just so incredible how fast we can accomplish a goal by giving ourselves permission to fail. Sounds confusing and crazy to you presently because on and on and on and on through life you've been told and you've heard many, many times when we were a little girl like that went outside the window there. We were told, you can't do that. That little girl over there doesn't understand can't, does she? Some of you can't see her, but she's over there observing the
Sure
class
she does.
visually, but she can't get into it. See, she's trying to learn, why are all these people in here so upset about everything? Why am I sitting here smiling, not even knowing what they're going through? Because obviously...
Because she's on candid camera, that's why.
Obviously, the awareness that she must have in life must be very, very positive. You know what's going to wreck it? Those people that talk real loud out there. They're going to. And you know why they're going to? Because they're going to impose all of their values on that little girl who really doesn't have any values of her own. So all of a sudden we begin to find we have the same thing. I mentioned last week when I was doing that talk at Wright that one thing I noticed with the classes is that we become so much better as parents if we are parents. Because we become aware of the fact that one of the reasons that we are as obsessed and upset and neurotic as we are about life is because we were conditioned that way. You can't do that. Don't think when you grow up things are going to be easy and on and on and on and on and on and on, right? Sure. And boy, oh boy, could we think of the negative suggestions of every time we try something. Who do you think you are that you could do that? Even my secretary was telling me today, she was speaking to her sister and she's just doing real super with her weight. And her sister says, "What's wrong with you? You're losing too much weight." What a negative suggestion to a lady who's trying so hard to look good. That all of a sudden now she's losing too much weight. She obviously doesn't believe it any longer, but could you imagine how you do begin to believe it? Because all of a sudden when somebody is so subjectively close to us, like maybe an older sister, like a parent, like a close friend, like a lover, like a husband, like a wife, we begin to accept subconsciously that they're telling us the truth. Now we might consciously say, I reject that, but we don't. It has a certain implication that seems to stick. It lingers in the mind, and it lingers for a long, long time. And it seems to linger on and on and on the more we try and get rid of it. Let's continue here with the light level of hypnosis. When you're in a light level of hypnosis, you feel this level of resistance. It's just an occasional thing, and it doesn't occur with everybody, and it really seems to matter what you're attempting to accomplish. In other words, if you're attempting to accomplish a goal that is very, very important to your subconscious mind's defense, then you're going to have a level of resistance that's incredible. I think I maybe had mentioned it the first week that that's been a very, very important part of my hypnosis career, is to find out, why doesn't hypnosis work? I could show you all the reasons why it could work and why it's supposed to work, and even using a word that I don't often use and why it should work. But why doesn't it work? I want to know why it doesn't work. Because if I find out why it doesn't work, can you begin to understand how much we could accomplish? Meaning myself as an instructor in this class, meaning myself in my own personal life. Can you imagine the fantasy of being able to feel in control of our subconscious mind? So that we don't flare up with anger or reach for the cigarette or shove the food in our mouth? Wouldn't it be exciting if we had the ability to control ourselves at will? Sometimes. Not always, sometimes. Sometimes I guess we need these little neuroses to make life more exciting. But obviously one thing, class, that we're probably all pretty familiar with, the lack of the ability to be successful is so strongly ingrained in us. We have such a strong negative society. And you might view somebody such as a movie star, such as a successful business person, such as an individual who looks like they've got their stuff together. And you might say, yeah, I wish I was her, I wish I was him, and realize immediately, yeah, that you're only viewing a finished product, but you don't know how that finished product got there. Let's exclude this particular fact of being born into money. I need to share with you and use an analogy that sometimes we're like a gas can full of gasoline with multiple holes in it, and we're trying to reach our vehicle and the gas is running out of these holes. I guess we might say these holes are all of our concerns that our subconscious mind has been given of how we're not going to accomplish something in life. You're never going to be successful. Don't think when you grow up you're going to amount to anything. You're just like your father. You'll never amount to anything. You're just like the kid down the street. Or how come you can't get better grades like your brother did? And on and on and on and on. We're dumped on with all of these nice negative suggestions. Is it any wonder that we're not successful in life? The best way, of course, to be successful is realize that whatever those messages may have been, they were accurate for the person who was verbalizing them, because that person was in some way instructed the same way. It wasn't he or she. They sure were. And I don't need to sit here and speak for a next hour on negative suggestions because we're all aware of them, otherwise you wouldn't be in this class. You see, you would not have a need for a self-hypnosis or self-help class if you had your life together. I wouldn't have a need to teach this class if I had my life together. Because each time I teach the class, I learn a little bit more. I learn how to feel better. I say, gee, I guess I'm feeling a little bit better. I expressed another particular part that I didn't know I had an awareness to, or whatever it might be. You might leave this class and say, gee, I feel a little bit better. I became a little bit more aware of a particular neurosis that I had or habit I had that isn't really so bad. Because if you notice, one thing is you dump on yourself strongly. I didn't see this movie on Golden Pond. Did some of you see it? Yeah. Anne and Rose, I understand that they had a phrase in there that somebody brought up to me today and said, in the phrase they said, we're all doing our best, or something to that effect. Is that right? Isn't that an interesting thought to think that we're all doing our best? I bet you didn't think it. Did you think that everybody's doing their best? No, sure. You probably thought you were doing your worst, you see, because we're never really thinking it like that. I've never heard that phrase before. I never thought of it that way before, and it'll probably stick with me because it had such a strong implication. I usually use something like this. Everybody hurts, so why do you feel any different? Do you think that there's anybody, do you think that there's anybody in your life, you got it, Liz? Okay. Do you think that there's... Sorry about that, Sue, but I just had a... You know, I just couldn't let that one go. Sue, just to give you an idea of what Liz is doing now.
She was asking me.
Yeah, I knew what she was asking you right away, as soon as you turned around. Liz is about 3 shades of red right now, so what's going on. I think I need to just express what I was getting into, even though I lost my train of thought. Okay. I was going to say, we don't need to feel inadequate. We don't need to feel negative or upset, or we don't need to feel as failures and feel alone. And the interesting part of that is that most of us feel those types of feelings. We might sit there and be real cool and say, well, you know, I don't feel like that. I have a lot of confidence and I feel sure of myself. But if we approach something new in life, something that we haven't faced before, or if we approach something that in the past has always been a very serious part of us, let's say like a fear of heights, and maybe we almost fell off of a roof once, or maybe we had a near accident one time, and every time we approach that same level in our conscious mind, that memory comes back, not on a conscious level, then all of a sudden we begin to realize that we have that fear. And I guess the example I'm attempting to use is like the movie and the expression in the movie. And I'm saying we don't need to feel any different because we all seem to have those fears. When we begin to realize that everybody is upset with their own particular life, as you might be, then you don't feel as alone. You don't feel as much of an outcast. You don't feel so dumb like you were taught as a child. Because is it not true that most of us in some way felt very inadequate as a child? We felt like we were the only kid that looked this ugly. Or we were the only kid that was this dumb, or this silly, or whatever it may have been. Clumsy. Mine was clumsy. Boy, I still trip over cracks and sidewalks because that's the message in my head. Boy, are you lanky and clumsy. And it's still a strong message. Think of your own messages as we take a break, okay? Go ahead and take a break and then go back to the levels of hypnosis.
Come me for a ride. Yeah, thanks for a ride. Please.
It catches.
He's just for a ride to show
Foster
her
in Harlem too.
Foster.
Yeah.
He's got them all over.
Why, where do you live, Sue?
Montrose and Pulaski.
Oh, you're real close.
He's even got it on the
Foster
church
in
pew.
Harlem. Church pew too? There's a group, an organization that's called the Association to Advanced Ethical Hypnosis. It's quite a large group. It's quite a well-known group. Joan studied there, right, Joan? At the Leaning Tower? Why? Yeah. Okay, I don't mean directly with the organization meeting. They have a meeting though. What is this Tuesday? Is this the second Tuesday of the month?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, they have a meeting the second Tuesday of every month. Well, obviously I didn't tell you about it because you may have gone there tonight instead of here, and I would have been totally rejected. Join a self-hypnosis class.
I know about it. You know better than that.
Yeah, I know. I like to joke. But
You rejected us last week.
I know.
No, he didn't. He gave us the good talk Wednesday
But I
night,
know
though.
that.
Oh, did he?
I mean,
You should have been.
The board made up for it Wednesday.
What's that?
You more than made up for it.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
I wish I'd
That's
gone.
me.
Well, so we
Was
didn't
it good?
really realize what was going on. But allow me to continue about this meeting, though. So the second Tuesday of every month, they have these meetings. And the meetings sometimes are quite exciting and stimulating. If nothing else, maybe you might get on their mailing list and they could mail you these little informative types of things. Sometimes they might have hypnosis in dentistry or hypnosis in children and many, many other things related to hypnosis, of course. This organization is about, I understand, 39 chapters large in different parts of the United States, and so it's probably the only strong affiliation of hypnosis around that seems to hold together. Doesn't mean they know what they're doing, it just means that they have a large organization, a large following. Obviously, you already know that I'm just a little bit anti-group just because of the fact that many, many times when you have an organization or a group, you can imagine right here, and a lot of you belong to groups, I'm sure, let's vote on something. Wow, right, you see, you've got it already, right. And then their meetings are, of course, exciting for the speakers, but sometimes a little bit uncomfortable because they have a lot of political stuff going on in the beginning. And Jonah, am I saying it correctly? You going to some of the meetings?
Only one.
Oh, okay.
That was required more or less.
Yeah, they do have that one,
Of
yeah.
course, and,
I went to one.
I agree with Carl, what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Seems
Yeah.
very political,
What, do you want me?
very
Excuse
interesting for the speaker.
Yeah, he speaks like it's easy, but it really isn't. Or, I'll bet it won't work on me, or I doubt very much if I could accomplish that, then the light level's useless.
Well, I just found it so easy to go, ooh, wait. In fact, I really had to oh, I don't want to stop. This
Yeah,
is so fantastic.
For sure.
You know?
Is
So-
that self-hypnosis now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now,
But
what-
now you're telling me that I thought I was down so far that nobody had ever been that deep, but evidently it wasn't.
Yeah, well, remember we spoke about it the first week about the feelings of being real deep. But I guess I'm going to say this. I'm speaking of the light level because I know one thing. Everybody in this class for sure could reach a light level of hypnosis. But now we have to section these people off like this. Everybody in this class is not going to be open enough to say, oh, okay, I'm on a light level now and I'm going to do my thing. It's just not there. Because we have spent many, many years conditioning ourselves to be negative. Now, the light level is not so successful. For sure, you and I are going to sit and speak, Nita, and I'm going to say to you, now when you're in this light level, first become aware of the fact that you are in fact hypnotized. How do I do that? Your breathing becomes smooth and even, your eyelids begin to flutter a little bit, because the pupils have a tendency to roll upward like that, and when your eyes are closed, if you do that, close your eyes and roll them upward. Yeah. Feel a fluttering sensation? That's the eyelids kind of pulling a little bit. That's automatic when you go into light level. But when you move into a medium level, that discontinues. But let's go back. If you measure that the light level of hypnosis is in fact existing, if you have the availability within your own mind to speak positive to yourself, the light level is excellent for accomplishing anything you wish, because all of us could achieve it. But if you happen to be a little bit skeptical, a little bit negative, analytical, or logical about the aspects of accomplishing your goal subjectively, meaning somewhat internally or emotionally, then you're going to have a difficulty. Then you need the medium level, which I'm going to speak of presently. Do you wish me to speak more of the light level?
Well, no, the only thing I'm questioning, I have such a grasshopper mind.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, I would find myself when I was doing something, I'd have a hard time. There, I did it, and I'm right back up again. In other words,
Yeah.
I talk to myself.
Yeah, that's okay.
Talk to myself. My mind will go off on all sorts of tangents. This is where I'm going. Would that not be at the light level? Would you not be able to control your conscious mind into shutting up and going away?
No, you use your conscious mind to generate the energy in your subconscious mind, in the light level. Look at it like this. The conscious mind is distractive if you're being analytical.
Right.
Okay. But if you're going to accept, assuming that I am saying to you what's true, and I am saying to you something that can work, and you have the facilities to remove the negative conditioning, then I'm saying the light level is excellent. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to con all of you people into realizing that the light level is okay. All right? And to do this, I have to keep in some way positively saying the light level is good. But then when you bring up a question of saying, well, gee, do you mean that? Well, the question needs to be answered in this fashion, Nita and everybody else, that the light level for sure can be achieved. Your need to be positive is the only thing that's going to get it to work. Because the light level will not work if you resist.
Well, how do you control your conscious mind jumping around?
Well, you train. My legs are beginning to relax. Could you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously you could. You just seem to be doing well. Your legs are beginning to relax. Where did your conscious mind go for a fraction of a second? A fraction of a second to your legs. You forgot about Ray sitting next to you, Sue on the other end. You forgot only your legs were existing for a fraction of a second. Okay? And as my legs begin to relax, well, look at this. Visualize that the subconscious mind relaxes the muscles. Okay? Yeah, you think the legs. But you don't consciously move each every muscle in your leg. It somehow subconsciously lets go. Now as your subconscious mind starts activating the muscles to loosen them up or relax them, however you might do it, what's existing with the subconscious mind? Where's it at? It's exposed. You see, it's coming out for only a second. Okay? Visualize, only a second. That's why you might hear me say, and as your legs begin to relax, you begin to feel more confident. Or, my legs are beginning to relax and I'll have less urges to eat when I'm nervous. Or I might word it, my legs are beginning to relax and I'll be in more control of my nervousness and have less urge to snack. However you might word it is up to your personal need. Some of you use imagery, some of you use verbal suggestions, some of you use sensations. But the idea is while your legs are beginning to relax, your subconscious mind is creeping out for a second to do so, speak to it. Say something to it. And you'll feel it activated, okay? Now to go back in. Now you might say, the tightness in my stomach is relaxing. Same part of your mind. It's already started here, and now it's going here, and now what's going to happen within 5 or 10 minutes, Nita and everybody else, if you go, my legs are relaxing, my stomach is relaxing, my chest is, my shoulders, what's going to happen? Your subconscious mind's going to emerge to the surface, see? But, here's the issue. It's like a frightened little child, okay? And it's creeping out very slowly. And as soon as you say, I'm going to eat less between meals, it runs and hides. See? Ralph was explaining to me something at break time that was in psychology today, and I'll attempt to repeat him correctly, that the person was working with hypnosis and a person who was being hypnotized kept having resistance and not being able to go past 140 pounds. Weighed 180, was trying to go,
wanted to go down to 140.
was 180, was trying to go to 140, but couldn't, and would, and go back up. Is that resistance? That's resistance, you see. We're going to speak out in hypnotic jargon. The subconscious mind has a fear of weighing 140 pounds. Who knows why? Well, Ralph expressed, and I thought he was going to get into something else, which I'll get into in a second, but he expressed that they reversed it and hypnotized her to weigh 200 pounds. Right?
Right.
Yeah. What's that going to do? See, it's going to remove the resistance of feeling the fear of losing, because there's going to be an anger from the gaining. See? Now if there's anger from gaining, it's going to fight to lose. Do you see the feelings that are going on? Subconscious mind's just like you. It has reasoning, it has logic, it's irrational, I said. But it has it. Okay? It's not something that we could consistently put together and say, now the reason I want to not weigh 140 pounds is because, well, it might change next week. But the reasoning usually is for a very positive reason. I've noticed this very often lately, that a lot of people have fears of losing weight because they use expressions like this. The only time I could lose weight is when I'm sick or upset. What does that verbalize? Margot, did you catch on to that one?
That you always want to be sick or upset.
Well, no. I'm talking of resistance. I'm speaking of the fact that a lot of people have a difficult time in losing weight. Okay? Then they verbalize and they say, I have a real difficult time losing weight. I've tried every diet I could think of. I have no way of losing weight at all. The only time I seem to be able to lose weight is when I'm sick or upset. Now what are they saying? They're saying that you've got it, Sue. What Donna is it?
I gotta be sick.
Yeah, is it Donna?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got to be sick. Who wants to be sick? Does anybody? No, who wants to be sick? Chuck is running around at break time. Do I have a fever? No.
He didn't say that.
They talked him into it.
Julie just got, so I was feeling him to see if he was sick.
Keep your hands off.
That's why.
Feeling it. Let me go back to what I was saying, because I think it's important for you to realize that the subconscious mind came out for a second, and you notice it does. You notice it does in me when I get real excited by what I'm saying. I mispronounce my words, I slur them, I drop them together, but I get my point across for sure. But you notice what happens is the subconscious mind in me is coming out as this begins to occur. So now the subconscious mind said, the only time I lose weight is when I'm sick or upset. Then the subconscious mind does not know what comes first. It doesn't know that when you're sick or upset, you lose weight, or when you lose weight,